Welcome, everybody, to the inaugural episode of Friggen
Woo!
Good Politics.
There we go.
Politics is the ultimate game of influence, and we've got the stories, lessons, and overuse of sports analogies you need to master it from a uniquely Canadian perspective. So, welcome to Friggen Good Politics. Welcome, Derek. My name
Thank
is
you.
Greg Tobin. We both work for Mash Strategy. Derek is the founder. CEO, I guess, is the technical title.
Sure. Let's go with that.
And I am a creative strategist, so I do just a little bit of everything, video, graphics, and yeah, we both work in the political strategy sphere, and we're going to dive into some topics today to discuss them, help you guys understand and to learn.
And we have an amazing interview. The great Brad
Yes.
Wall. We did a pre-tape with him last week, and he makes fun of me for probably 10 to 15 minutes of the show. So,
Yes.
so that's great. He makes fun of Greg too. Got to know Greg close to the end of the
Yeah.
episode, so make fun of him near the end, which I liked.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm really excited for this. We're going to have a unique show, I think, where we're not going to just give our hot takes on politics. It's going to be more about the secrets behind the headlines. So why on earth is this happening? Why are these political leaders or these business leaders acting in this way? And I think what we want to do that's different from other political podcasts out there is really explain the why behind what's going on. That political leaders, they a lot of times, when I talk to people, they're like, why on earth are they doing this? Like, this just doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, it's because there's a reason behind what they're doing to play the game. And so what we're going to talk a lot about, and especially the sports analogy side of it, is that there's a game happening all the time. And you have to understand the rules, you have to understand the anatomy of the game. And when you do, you're able to win and have more influence in the game. And so for the people that want to have more influence in public life, they want to become better leaders, in business, they want to be able to influence policy, influence government, influence the public. This is a show for you. We're going to get into the nitty gritty details of that and have a lot of fun, I think, while we're doing it. And so we're going to start off with this cool thing called Plays of the Week, where we just look at the sort of best things that are happening around and talk about the why behind what's going on there. And then we're going to go into, do we go into the sin bin next? Or the chirp of the week? We go chirp of the
Chirp
week
of the week.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. So, what are some good chirps and politics out there? And we go to the sin bin. So, what's something horrible that happened? And then we'll go into some stick taps for some good people out there that need a great shout. So, I have some people, and obviously we're wearing some of our jerseys today. So,
Yeah. I was going to say, Derek, tell us about your jersey.
yeah, so Saskatchewan Roughriders, beloved fan of that team. Grew up bleeding green. I live in Calgary nowadays, but I can't help but cheer for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. You can take the boy out of Saskatchewan, but you can't take the Saskatchewan out of the boy, is what they say. So, obviously we got another green jersey there. Tell us about your love of the
Yeah. So,
pack there,
so
Tobin.
this is the Green Bay Packers, good best team in the NFL, obviously greatest team. I won't lie though, because I've been a fan for pretty well since I was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And it's my embarrassing reason for why I chose this team was because my favorite color was green. And I was like, I'm
Wow.
just gonna go with the green team. That works.
Hey, you got to have something. See,
And I
I always
fell in
find
love.
I find the NFL weird that way is, I ask people why they like a certain team. And in Canada, it's like, I like the Riders because I grew up there, or I like the Jets because I
Yeah.
grew up in Winnipeg or whatever, right? But in the NFL, it's like the people have bizarre reasons why they like teams. It's like, I like the logo. It's like the logo was cool. Or like at least if it's like I liked a certain player in a certain era, it's
Yeah.
like, that makes a lot of sense to me. But a lot of times when people tell me, they're just like, I went to Chicago one time, so I like the Bears now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
A
I,
lot of
I
I'm
actually
from the center of the universe, Ontario. So a lot of people from southwestern Ontario tend to be Lions fans just because it's close.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
What
wanted
about
to
Bills
break that
though?
trend. Bill,
What
there are
about the
some
Bills?
Bills fans. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like go Bills, except not anymore. But go
Except they
Bills.
lost. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sad.
yeah, and everyone's like, go Eagles, I guess. I see. I like the Chiefs. I like the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelsey drama that's going on there. I love Patrick Mahomes. I see. I like winners. Like when the Patriots were doing really well, I was like, yeah, go Tom Brady, go Gronk, all these guys. I just love the dynasties. I'm
I get
into it.
it. I get
And
it.
so you're a hater, and I support your hate as well, Greg. But I'm just telling you,
I want the dynasty to happen to me. I want it.
I know. I see my other I should have been wearing my Leafs jersey today. That's my main team that I follow, and I'm obsessed with following that team. But they lost against the Senators. I think that was four straight losses to the Senators again, and
Oof.
not good. And my neighbor, who's a huge Senators fan, was over on Saturday to
Oh
watch the game,
no.
and he actually admitted it was a janky game because it was
Okay.
basically Shane Pinto kicked the puck off of his knee in a bizarre fashion for the game-winning goal. And it was a 2-1 game, and and then the Leafs actually got a goal taken away in the exact same way not too long ago, where it was a kicking motion off of a knee, but apparently on the knee sometimes it counts, sometimes it doesn't count. So against the Leafs, it certainly counts. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a goal against the Leafs, but if the Leafs are kneeing it in, it's not a goal.
So
So
everyone hates the guy at the top, team at the
that
top,
that's right. That's yeah,
There's
and
always
that's why people hate the Chiefs because they're at the top. So
I know
is
they
that
are a good team. I'll give them that. They are a very good team. They've
so
earned it.
people you're gonna have to put up with some of the sports talk. It's just it's gonna come out in these episodes. It already has, and I
Yeah.
let it down that direction. But it was a big weekend for NFL football.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is great. I think Jalen Hurts is hurt is the problem,
Yeah.
and some of their team is a little banged up, but they were still exceptional yesterday. I thought they were great.
Oh yeah. No, it was
So
a
we'll
good.
see if they can hold up.
It's been fun to watch so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so we'll dive into our plays of the week. We'll get into that now. Play of the
Good.
week number one. We're going into our first period here. We got Doug Ford. Canada's not for sale. Um, Heading into an election. I'm in Ontario, so I'll be heading into an election this week. I think he said Wednesday morning he's going to go
Yeah.
see the lieutenant governor, dissolve parliament. And a lot of people kind of asking, why? Why, Mr. Doug Ford, are you doing this? And yeah, thank you for. So you'll see in the headline there, he's got his Canada's not for sale hat, which
Very
actually
popular hat.
everyone love. I've still got to buy one. I've still got to
Yeah,
actually get one. I think with shipping to get it to me, it's going to be like $50. So I've got to
50.
somehow convince my wife that I need to have this. Like this is an
You need it.
essential. Yeah,
Yeah, you're on Team Canada. You're not like
I
us
am.
bad Albertans.
Yeah, we'll
Not
get to
not
that.
beyond.
We'll get to
We'll get to that. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
No.
yeah, why would Doug Ford call an election? There's a like from a procedural standpoint. Number one, there is in our Westminster parliamentary system, there is actually a precedent for big new thing has happened that changes the calculus of the political situation. So I would like a new mandate. I either need or want a new mandate, and so that's kind of his argument. And that's his front. Maybe that's his front facing argument.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's talking about the behind the scenes argument, which is according to all the polls, he's going to get the biggest majority he's ever had.
Yeah.
Looking over at 338 here, like I think Innovative had him at 52.
Right.
Can we
That's
scroll down?
pretty crazy.
Does it show the other polls?
I think it has all the polls
Yeah,
also. So one of them's way up high, right?
that one way up high is the Innovative poll, and
Yeah,
then
it's like off the
campaign
charts.
strategies. It's crazy. Campaign
Yeah.
strategies, which is the internal polling agency for the Ford government, they had him at
Mm.
like 47. So he'll probably get, assuming these polls are accurate, and that's we always
Yeah,
there's
never
always
know.
caveats and all the various hums and haws about that. Assuming that's all accurate, he'll win his biggest majority ever.
Well, you look at this. The odds of him winning the
Yeah,
most seats are greater than 99%. So
yeah,
that's not bad. So people are, why is Doug Ford doing this? Well, it's a good opportunity. It's a good excuse, I guess, for him to go to the
yes,
polls. What is it, 18 months early, I think it is.
something
So
like that. Yeah, yeah,
so he doesn't need to go right now, technically, but this is what political leaders do when they sense an opportunity. It's like, oh, this Trump thing is really different. And Doug Ford is really kind of leading the way, I would say, on
yeah,
the Team Canada approach with the lack of leadership federally right now with the lame duck prime
yeah.
minister. You have Doug Ford stepping in and kind of corralling the crew. And obviously, the biggest province, and there's going to be a lot going on there. And so, yeah, I think it's a smart opportunity for him. Now, what people typically tell me, it's like, well, aren't people going to hate him for calling an election? It's very expensive. I saw Bonnie Crombie, the Liberal leader, on CTV or somewhere saying, this is going to cost this much money, and how dare he? And this is all about protecting his job. This is not about jobs for Ontario people. This is about his job. And my response to that is yes, that will happen, and it goes away in about a week.
Yeah.
And political
Trudeau had
leaders
the
know
same
this.
thing in 2021. People were mad, and then everyone was just in campaign mode. They forgot.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
just didn't care anymore.
So people think, okay, Doug Ford, what an idiot. Like, why is he doing this? It's going to bite him in the ass and whatever, right? Probably not. Probably he's going to be just fine. And yeah, you might have a little bit of a dip or people upset with you dragging them into an election right now. But yeah, the reason he has is fairly justifiable in my opinion. It's not incredibly justifiable because he still has, a lot of time left in his mandate, but it's an excuse to go. He's allowed to do this,
Yeah.
and he's probably going to win. And the other thing I know you and I were talking about beforehand was how I think the Ontario PCs have done a good job defining their opponents
Oh
early
my
on.
gosh. Well, and that's the other big reason why he probably feels very comfortable to call this right now. The Ontario Liberal Party and the Ontario NDP are just in shambles.
Yeah.
Either in terms of inability to break through the noise to get to that signal,
Yeah.
or like Bonnie Crombie still doesn't even have a seat in the legislature, and she hasn't since she won, and she's been leader
Yeah.
for what, a year and a half or something like that. The NDP acclaimed Merritt Stiles, their leader, so they generated no buzz. And their party slogan for this next election is "It's Merit," which is just
Oh,
abysmal,
that's
like
not great. That is not good. I didn't know
terrible.
that, and that is
Yeah.
not
Oh,
a pretty
I laughed
slogan.
out loud when I saw that. I was like, guys, you don't you don't make your party slogan about the leader that no one knows about. Like,
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
grief.
That is hilarious. Yeah, the other principle I know we're talking about that was good was when a new leader, so let's say you're in a incumbent government and a
Mm-hmm.
new leader, opposition leader gets elected, you want to define your opponent before they have a chance to define
Yes.
themselves. That is a rule. That is a play in the game that you always want to play. And it still shocks me that a lot of political parties don't play that play for some reason. They wait way too long and then it becomes too late. The other leader gets momentum because when a leader gets elected, the public doesn't really know who they are yet. And so there's sort of this feeling out period with a new leader, and you're trying to figure out, okay, is this person good? Am I going to like them? What sort of vibes am I getting from them? And you want to have some negative attack ads right away. And
Right away.
we this is actually something we do at MASH, our attack ads. We're very nice guys, but when it comes to serving our clients and in politics
The
in this way,
nicest attack ads you've ever
they're
seen.
the nicest, they're the best and nicest attack ads. But we wanted to actually show you the Bonnie Crombie ads because we didn't do them, but I thought they were quite effective,
Yeah.
and it was really smart that they did this right away. So let me pull these up, and you actually can't find these online anymore, so they'll probably be mad at me for sharing these, but I recorded them, so people can see them. So take a watch.
Bonnie Crombie? Oh, the new Ontario Liberal leader. Of course she's friends with Justin Trudeau.
Of course she is.
And just like Trudeau, she supports a carbon tax too.
Uh-oh, not good.
She even increased taxes as mayor. In this economy? Ugh, tax, tax, tax. Sounds expensive. No thank you. Bonnie Crombie. She's expensive. A message from the Ontario PC Party.
Got her in that Maserati. That's a Maserati, right? I think. I don't know
Yeah, I think
my.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty
I
sure.
actually forgot about that part. So that was the male voiceover, but I actually like the female voiceover because it was like Bonnie Crombie, she's expensive. It was like it just had like a funny sort of ring to it. And
Yeah.
obviously, right now the play is on affordability. That's what's
Yeah.
driving Canadians the most annoyed right now. And like that's actually a hard play for the Ontario government to make because they've been in power for quite some time. And then we've
Yeah.
seen a massive increase in inflation. Now, you can blame the feds and everything else, but I guess what they're doing in that ad is they're saying she's going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Maybe our record on it's not great, but she's going to make it way worse. She's so expensive with her fancy habits and all the
Yeah.
things that she does.
Well, and Doug Ford has masterfully cultivated this kind of like, oh, geez, golly
Yeah.
shucks kind of
Yeah.
attitude that makes him very hard to be mad at, unless
Yeah.
like, except for hyper partisans are always going to be angry
For
at
sure.
him. But
Yeah.
I think when when I hear from the average Ontarian, now all of course and caveats about anecdotes not being data,
Hmm.
yada yada yada. But I hear people say, oh yeah, I mean he's all right, he did it, he's done a fair job,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's what's saved his bacon there.
Well, I've talked a lot about Doug Ford in presentations on a person that's very good at being the everyman. And
Yes.
and and so we do this with our clients, whether they're business or political, but we help them find out what their marketing archetype is. And Doug Ford is the ultimate everyman, where
Yeah.
it's just I'm just like you, you're just like me, and his brother was like that as mayor of Toronto, probably too much of an everyman, or like a
Yeah. Ooh. Rest in peace.
but Doug Ford he's very affable. He's just kind of like Uncle Doug.
Yeah.
And I remember in COVID, he was like doing all this baking in his house.
Everyone loved it.
everyone loved it, right? And I remember this was like the most staged photo op ever, but it was him like digging out cars in a big like Toronto snowstorm. And I
We're
like I
gonna
remember
get
looking
you
at
out of here,
like
buddy.
yeah, and he had like a little shovel and it's like clearly he was with like a staffer and like walking around just to do this.
Yeah,
But it actually worked. Like I remember seeing some of the commentary online and like Doug Ford's the best and
yeah.
so he really leans into that. And my favorite one, and we should maybe show this sometime, but is like when he ate the bee
The
like
bee.
live
Oh
on
my
po-
gosh, I
he ate it.
howled laughing for days. I just
It
kept
was
rewatching it. It was so funny.
it was amazing.
The,
And And
I'm
so yeah,
dying.
just to set this up for people, he's at a press conference. I don't know, he's announcing like highways or something,
Something
some
like
sort of
that. Yeah.
infrastructure. Nobody cares. He's just talking, and all of a sudden like a bee's like flying around. He's like swatting it, and then all of a sudden it goes in his mouth, and he swallows it, and he's like like he's like
He
coughing.
handled it so much better than I would.
Oh
I
yeah,
hate that. I hate bees. I've never been stung because
yeah,
I'm so good at avoiding them. Like, oh, he
yeah,
handled it so well.
yeah. And then he's just like, oh, right down the hatch there.
Yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah,
oh that sucker went in there.
right down the hatch. That'd be there. So again, for me, that's what you have to do as a leader is find out how who you are truly, and then lean into it. And
And
so Doug
stick
Ford is
to it.
yeah, and stick to it. Doug Ford has really done a good job at being the everyman, and so that people, even if like even conservatives hate him a lot of the time. Like I have a lot of conservative friends that are
Yeah,
like, "Oh, Doug Ford, rah, rah, rah. He's not conservative enough, and he's too much of a liberal, and blah blah blah." And sometimes he's pretty apologetic to the federal government, and they don't like that. And there's certain things that he does they don't like. But again, you're kind of willing to forgive him because he's like, well, it's Uncle Doug. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
he's pretty good, you
He'll
know?
build another nuclear plant. That's fine. I'm happy with that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting one. A pretty good play for the Ontario PCs. I know some friends
yeah,
that are going to be part of that election, and yeah, we'll see how it turns out, and maybe we can talk more about that one later.
yeah. Another fun fact about this election: the PCs will have a full slate. The
Mhm.
NDP and the Libs probably will not
Oh,
of
really?
ML or MPPs or candidates to run for MPP,
Really?
which is
Huh.
just wild that they're not ready to go. Major mistake.
So this obviously caught them pretty off guard.
Yeah. Oh,
What
I
are they
think,
just
but
calling it?
this has been like it's been hinted at for
Oh, I
months.
know. That's what I thought too. I was like,
So
oh, for sure they'd be ready, but
yeah, I don't know how they're not ready to go, but
hmm.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
candidate recruitment's hard. Like we'll hear that in the
yeah,
Brad Wall interview too. Is it's not easy to recruit candidates. Like I remember being in Brad Wall's office and him making a lot of phone calls to people to run, and he was the most popular premier in Canada. The Sask Party
yeah,
was crushing it in elections. So imagine if you are a Liberal leader or an NDP leader, and your party is barely double digits in the polls,
yeah,
and you look like you're going to get crushed, and you have very little chance of winning. Well, why would I disrupt my life for the
yeah,
next month or two and spend a bunch of time and money on all this? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
yeah. No, this
So
is true. This is
I could
true.
see candidate recruitment being very difficult for
Yeah,
them. And then,
I
you
do not
know,
envy them.
yeah, and there's this thing called paper candidates that if you've never heard of that before,
Yeah,
it's the idea that eventually it's just someone that puts their name on it because no one else would do it. And it does work out sometimes for those paper candidates, like when the NDP under Jack Layton did very well,
yeah.
surprisingly. And there
In
was a bunch of,
Quebec, there, yeah,
yeah, especially in Quebec, there was that one lady that was in Mexico when she got elected and she didn't realize she got elected and she, oh, I'm an MP now. Woohoo. I
yeah,
didn't kind of forgot she put her name on like a candidate election form and ooh, now I make good money and
yeah,
I'm there. So yeah, Doug Ford, he's a interesting character. He's been very successful in his career.
yeah.
So
Keeps
we'll
his
see
stick on
that.
the ice, finishes his checks,
That's
all that
right.
good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for the
Puck
sports
Steve.
analogy. We need to insert more. We'll try
Yeah,
to insert more.
yeah. All right, we'll switch up gears. Let's go to Danielle Smith. Play of the week number 2. We're moving into the second period here. Derek,
Yeah.
you're from Calgary. You're an Albertan. You're an adoptive Albertan. You take it away.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I thought this was fascinating what she did here. And so basically, what happened was Trump tariffs, massive threat. It's still a massive threat. It's going to be for some time, I think. She decides that she's not going to sign on to the Team Canada communique that's going out from all the other premiers to say we're going to fight these tariffs and make all this happen together. And it's because that they hinted that they would be using turning off the oil taps to the United States as part of the tactic. And she was not interested in that. So she decided basically, screw you, everyone else. I'm going to go to where Trump is. I'm going to meet him and I'm going to meet a bunch of his staff and people. And she got in front of a bunch of them. So if you
Yeah.
go to her Twitter account, this is just a National Post story, but you'll see she's meeting with everybody. Like she got quite the connection. And at the time I was looking at this and I'm like, oh, okay, she's meeting with Jordan Peterson and Kevin O'Leary and Donald Trump and basically all the conservative type people in the states that
Yeah.
have influence. And the whole country was sort of upset with her, I would say, that she was doing this, that she didn't sign on to the Team Canada. You saw Doug Fort's hat there that, Canada's not for sale. And it kind of made it
Yeah.
look like maybe Canada is for sale with Danielle Smith or something. And so, this,
Yeah.
I thought the interesting thing on the week was, okay, she's doing this. This is interesting. And then she stands alone on this. She's the only one doing this, and she's doing all these interviews about it. And then the Globe and Mail was writing some nasty stuff about her, which, they typically do. But it was, this is going to cost us all. She's the worst. How dare she? And I even think, Ontarians, like I know, Greg, you and I were talking, and you were sort of miffed by this too. You're kind of like, hey, what on earth is she
Uh,
doing here?
I was only miffed that she didn't show up in person. I thought
Oh,
you
yeah, you didn't
actually
like that
have
part. Yeah.
all the cards are in your hand, Danielle.
Mhm.
The oil thing is probably the number one bargaining chip.
It is. It
If
for
you
sure
like
is.
show up and you've got the leverage, like get in there and make the case and bring Saskatchewan if you really want to bring Saskatchewan on board with potash, Manitoba if you can, BC if you
Uranium.
can, like get those, yeah, the uranium,
Yeah,
get
that's
the
huge.
northern territory leaders of the territories on board. Like I just couldn't believe she didn't show up in person.
Yeah. No, no, that's fair. I don't know the scheduling and what all happened there.
She was on
It's
vacation, and I don't knock politicians deserve their vacation of all stripes.
No, they
I just
don't.
thought
Politicians are never allowed to have personal lives. That's a
rule
rule of
number
the game.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually is hard as a politician. You can't even post your own vacation because someone will make a big deal out of it.
Oh
But
yeah.
so okay, so the Globe and Mail mad at her, and then kind of mid-week or a little later, it's like, oh, the jury's out. Maybe she's actually accomplishing something here. And I think the reason why this sort of changed is because one, she was standing up pretty effectively for her province to say, why should Alberta take the hit again for Canada? How much equalization dollars do we have to give to the rest of Canada? How much do we have to prop up the Canadian economy with what we do here in Alberta? And no one wants to build pipelines here. No one wants to do anything. And now we're kind of at the behest of the US government, and we're kind of getting screwed right now again. So, if you know your political history, the National Energy Program, that was a horrible program that really separated East and West in this
Yeah.
country. And I think it still divides it today. And then it kind of
Oh
sounds like
yeah.
something like that's happening again with this. And so you had the bloc leader, and I think the Quebec premier even said, we shouldn't be turning off the taps. This is, it's going to create a war that we can't win, essentially. And so people are like, okay, well, maybe she's doing something good there. And in my opinion as well, and when I've talked to other leaders about this, who do kind of the, international relations, having just a connection to someone in these administrations is
Yeah.
so valuable. Like I think there's going to be all the premiers are going to be like, hey, Premier Smith, could you introduce me to this person in Trump's cabinet, and just having that little bit of FaceTime is huge, and
Oh
and
yeah.
and so I think she's actually doing quite a lot there, and as a adopted Albertan, but just kind of a biased Western Canadian, I was like, screw this Team Canada, like again, it's like Alberta has to take the hit, and I didn't like it, I didn't think it was fair.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I think she stood up quite effectively. And I know Scott Moe was a little slower behind, but he's kind of gotten there as well. And so it's just funny by the end of the week, it's like now the rest of Canada should stop vilifying her and we just start listening to her.
Yeah.
So people really changed their tune, and I was quite surprised by that. What did you think, Mr. Tobin, overall?
Well, the first things first. Yeah, reshare that. We need to go back to the very first article.
Okay.
We need to talk about
All right.
the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Go back to that first new National Post, and then scroll down.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Leary in an all white suit. What is going on here? It looks like he's starting up a dinosaur theme park. Like what is
Uh-huh.
this?
Yeah,
I
well,
thought,
yeah, he's very interesting. Do you see him now? Like he does these interviews, and I see him post them on Twitter, and he's in like pajama pants and like flip flops, and he has like a suit jacket on. He's like he's clearly in his house with like a little
yeah,
bit of a studio in there. That's for me, that's kind
Yeah.
of strange. But yeah, Kevin O'Leary is obviously very interested in having an opinion on politics, and he ran for conservative leader. People
He
kind of
did. He
forget that
did. Yeah, I
sometimes.
don't know if people remember that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
just thought it was funny. It looked funny. So anyway, now that we got the stupid joke out of the way, yeah, from an Eastern perspective, I think everyone's original kind of like, hey, was that she didn't show up. Her argument about the oil is 100% correct. Like if they
Yeah.
shut off the taps, like Alberta is screwed. Um,
So is the states,
right.
though. To be
But
fair,
yeah,
like
here's the thing: we don't actually have to do that much.
yeah,
Them doing these tariffs, shutting off the resources, is going to kneecap them. There was an interview or some kind of town hall with Trump in California, and someone got up and clearly a supporter of Trump and said, "Mr. President, thank you so much." All the usual blah blah blah. And then he said, "But are you going to actually shut off trade from Canada? Like, I'm not going to be able to get lumber and other supplies
yeah,
to
yeah,
rebuild because they get what 70% of all lumber comes from us. Like,
yeah.
you can maybe on a whim replace what 25%. There's no way they're going to replace 70%.
No.
And even with the oil, like, yes, technically America could be energy sufficient or self sufficient, but
Yeah.
like it's not
They
gonna
ain't
it's
close
gonna
to it
take a
now.
long time.
Yeah, they're
And
not even
all of
close.
their no, and so many of their refineries are set. They're only made to deal with what they call sour oil or sour bitumen,
Yeah,
which was what we give them. They would have to completely retool and find new avenues for resources. So
it'd be
we don't
incredibly
really have to
disruptive.
do much. It's going to be that they're
Yeah,
going to kneecap themselves, which is why people in Trump's inner circle have kind of been like, "This is a bad idea."
it's a little scary. Yeah.
Yeah,
But the Trump administration is interesting. Like Trump knows he can just bully people by saying things. And so
yes,
he's going to try so this is another principle in elected politics that you can do is that when you're a premier or whatever, you throw out these things called trial balloons. And so what Trump is doing with this, we're going to buy Canada, become the 51st state and 25% tariff, 30%, like what, just throwing numbers and different things out there is he's trialing it out and people will jump because like think of how much Canada has already changed politically because of Trump just saying stuff. He hasn't even done anything yet against us. He's just said a few things at a podium. So a lot of times you don't have to take legislative or policy or executive actions to make change. You just have to say things from a bully pulpit and you trial it out and then you sort of back down later. So if you find
yeah,
people aren't really picking it up, you can back down. And so smart leaders will do that. Like, in my like we've worked with how many like 7, 8 premiers now, the leader
yeah,
of the opposition. And what you always want to do is you just want to try things. Smart leaders do that before they implement it. They sort of
yeah,
tease it out, and you're like, are people really going to pick this up? And the other thing that it does is it actually shifts the policy discussion to where you want it to go. So
yes.
if really all it's kind of like in bargaining, if it's like I want a 40% raise and but really want a 20% raise, it's like, okay, I can like negotiate down kind of thing. It's the
Yes.
same sort of thing in policy. It's the same game that gets played.
Yeah.
Is I'm gonna trial this crazy thing out and be like, actually, we're gonna dial it back. But you're able to shift it's called the Overton window in public policy over to the point where it's like, okay, this is actually going to become an acceptable policy in the public
Yeah.
eye.
Yeah.
And so that's even as business leaders, I think you can do that as well. Is you can say, we need to go in this direction. And it could be like way far out there, more than, you basically do a trial balloon and you'll create public attention and shift the policy discussion.
Well,
The,
and Trump has clearly sniffed out the fact that we've got our lame duck prime minister. Parliament's now
yeah,
shuttered for goodness knows how long, at least till the end
yeah,
of
I know.
March. Who knows if we have an election after that? I hope.
Yeah.
But he knows there's weakness there, and so he's exploiting
There's
it. And I guess
what?
maybe the other myth that Eastern Canada had was Danielle. She wasn't fighting back on these Canada will become a 51st state things.
Right.
And I
Right.
think I understand that, like, it's a lot of blustering, it's a lot of posturing, all
Mhm.
that yada yada yada. I think people still wanted to hear everyone go like, no, no, like we're not going to become your 51st state. We're going to work with you, yada yada yada. I think maybe that was part of the other. At least that's what bothered me. And then there was sort of the like, oh, all you Eastern Canadians, like, oh, hey, wait a minute, I did not vote. I would love a pipeline, but build it in my backyard. I don't care. Get
Yeah.
that pipeline out to the East Coast. Like, I'm
Yeah.
very much in favor of that.
Amazing how that changed like overnight, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. And
before it was like
Trudeau,
so much opposition, and now it's like, oh
yeah,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, give me 5 pipelines. It's like,
yeah,
whoa,
yeah. Like, okay,
James
you're
rapidly.
a little late. Yeah,
Yeah. And so it shows like how political winds can shift really fast. The other thing I think very dangerous for Canada that we have to be very mindful of here, and this is maybe a bit of a hot take, and it's because I am doing a small sample size, anecdotal sample size, on Albertans who would want to become part of the US. And I have yet to find someone in Alberta that if the deal was sweeter than it is in Canada, they wouldn't be like, hell yeah, let's become the 51st state.
Yeah.
And so that is very dangerous because if Trump was smart, and we're not going to give him this advice because he won't listen to this podcast, but Alberta's actually the weak link here because Albertans feel that their deal within Confederation is garbage. They feel like forever they've been taken advantage of. And so Trump could say, hey, here's a way better deal. You're going to have access to all of this. You're going to have less taxes. You don't have to do equalization anymore. You become dual citizens. You have you're now on the US dollar. You can travel with us, blah, 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 blah. A lot of Albertans are going to be quite excited by that. And that will create a national unity crisis if he were to do something like that. So I would watch out for that play in the future. And Danielle Smith is going to have to be very careful with that because her base, a lot of conservatives in this province would love to become part of the US. It's actually a lot of business people here. When you talk to them, if they had to endure another 4 years of Trudeau, they're all moving.
Yeah.
They're like, we're out of here. And I don't think
if that happens, I think we can expect, if for some reason the Liberals were to win, I could very much foresee this becoming a very, very serious crisis within Confederation.
For sure. And so like, I think Pierre Poilievre government calms a lot of that down. I think that's still going to be undertones of it. But yeah, I think that's a huge risk for the country breaking up because we've never had an expansionist U.S. president since when? When was the last time we had an expansionist?
1812, Manifest Destiny, and we kicked their ass.
But
that was a very different time.
That was a very different time. So, I think there's a million challenges to an expansionist U.S. government in Canada. But the fact is that Alberta could really use this as leverage in Confederation, especially, you have a new government in Pierre Poilievre. He's going to have to do something with equalization. He said he's not going to do much on it. But if Alberta says, hey, actually, we're kind of interested in becoming the 51st state, that starts to change the calculation for the country because it's, Alberta pays the bills, people. They really do. Yeah. And if you look at any option for getting Alberta out of Canada, Canada don't look so good no more. And so, but yeah, I don't think Premier Smith can say anything like that. That would be way too risky.
Well, and I don't even know, like, I honestly don't believe that if Trump were serious about even annexing us, that he'd actually make us a state. I just really don't see it. We'd become a protectorate. He wants our stuff. Like, he very clearly wants our stuff, and he could use eminent domain laws to come in and just take it if we were a protectorate. Like, I do not foresee him. They've already got, like, they're dealing with domestic issues with immigration and housing and all that stuff. Like, a lot of problems. I really don't foresee them granting all 41 million Canadians movement rights to then suddenly everybody, okay, well, I'm going to go to Tennessee. I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I just don't see them doing that. I don't see them offering that.
Well, that's why it's like, I think you could only do it in one or two provinces, and then those would actually be states. But it's like, Ontario's never going to the US or Quebec or anything like that. There's no chance. Like that, they're not weak links in Confederation. Well, Quebec is, and for its own reasons. But like Saskatchewan is I don't think would have a big interest. But yeah, I'm shocked actually when I talk to Albertans, to be honest. And so that's something to keep an eye on for, politics, because it could really change quickly.
It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart because I'm a United Empire loyalist.
I know, right? But Albertans are not that.
I know.
That's the reality, is they feel like the Wexit is a big thing here for a reason. And I think people underestimate how angry Albertans are. And that's actually one of the reasons why Danielle Smith got elected, was on the strength of Wexit and a lot of anger towards that. So anyway, something, we don't have to belabor this. This will be another topic for another time, but it's something for the country to watch out for, that it's more tenuous than people think.
Yes, no, absolutely. All right, moving on to play of the week number 3. We're moving into our third period now. I had Pierre flipping the script on that CP24 newscaster. So I don't want to necessarily dive too deep into exactly what they talked about per se. But the newscaster, Pierre went on, newscaster asked him about, because Trump, during his inauguration, one of his executive orders was clarifying that there are only two genders.
Yeah.
And the United States government acknowledges this. And there was quite a long statement about it that got a lot of support. And then obviously the discussion came up here as well. Like Pierre and this newscaster said, "Are you going to do something similar?" And Pierre, as he's very, very good at this. We saw this with the Apple incident in BC and other places where he completely flipped the script on the newscaster and put him on the defensive. And it's not this is a really smart play, a debate tactic. You can use it in negotiating, where you flip the script on the person asking the question. And he said something along the lines of like, "Well, I only know of two. Do you know any other ones?" And the guy was very clearly, he seemed very awkward, unsure of himself.
He didn't know what to do.
Didn't have no clue what to say or do. And then he kept kind of like, "Well, what about?" And then Pierre was like, Pierre just kept pushing back and pushing back, and kept the upper hand in that whole conversation.
Yeah,
it's a masterful skill that he has really honed over the last 2 years. And it's part of the reason why I think the media landscape has even changed since it's changed quite a bit in the last 5 to 10 years, but even since he was elected leader, because they've not been able to watching, the news go after O'Toole and Scheer the way they did that versus Pierre. It's a totally different world now.
Yeah. Well, those are the classic gotcha questions.
Yeah.
And they're trying to paint you in a corner. And I think Pierre's done a good job of not painting himself in a corner. Now, I think he went further than any other conservative leader's ever done on those sort of gender issues. Yeah. I think that is, quite a shift, honestly, that he felt comfortable enough doing that. And again, we weren't involved in advising him on that or anything, just for a disclaimer there. But yeah, I thought that was a unique way of communicating. And, in a negotiation or a conversation, the one asking the questions has the power. And so that's why the interviewers typically have the power. And so the game that's being played here is he shifts the power dynamic and makes them talk. And then, I don't know what to say. Right. And the other thing he did, I thought was good in that interview, is that he pivoted right away as well. So when he was kind of like done talking about that, where he's like, I only know of two genders, and what else is there? And then he basically just said, people are allowed to do what they want. That's not my concern. My concern is the economy, affordability, building houses, fixing the budget, accident. Like, then he pivoted to his message. So that's the other principle I think here is you can ask questions back to interviewers. I guess people don't know you could do that, but you certainly can as a business leader, as a nonprofit leader, or whatever. So ask the question back, and then you can just pivot your message whenever you want. But you have to have in your mind what you want to say. And this is like kind of media relations 101, is you acknowledge the question and then you pivot to your message. And so that's the thing. You don't act like I'm personally of the opinion, I like when people answer the question to some regard. Like, I don't love how the Liberals have done it for the last 10 years or however long, where it's just, they just completely ignore the question and start talking about everything they want to talk about. Like, I at least like seeing the question acknowledged, but I also understand why the Liberals play that game, because they can get away with it too. Is you basically just say whatever you want and you sort of ignore the question, and it works pretty well for them.
I don't think they're getting away with it anymore, though. Like, the media has completely turned on them in the last year and a half. Like, they are pissed.
But it worked for a long time to be like.
Oh, it did, yeah.
So, but like, just the the popularity of the government went down, and everyone has an expiry date in politics. So.
Oh yeah.
I think you're right, Greg. It's an interesting tactic that he's using, and the Apple thing went viral. Like, you actually hear about that if you go to the US or the UK or other parts of the world. People are like, wow, that was like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Just kind of beating up that poor reporter. I don't even know who that reporter is. He's probably not feeling very good about himself these days.
Never. I do feel bad for him. What Pierre also, he threaded the needle perfectly on, I think it was maybe a week before that. The media was asking him about Danielle Smith, to tie it back into our second play of the week, asking him about that and the Team Canada approach, and clearly trying to get him to, they want some tension there between him and Danielle. It's always fun to see conservatives fighting conservatives, but he threaded the needle perfectly. Talked about, like, shifted the blame to the feds for leaving us in this terrible position. Talked about how we're not going to be we're not going to be bullied by the United States anymore, because frankly, we do. Like, we sell our oil to them for pennies on the dollar. We lose $500 billion of GDP every year, or we have over whatever. It's either every year or we've lost that over time to the United States. So we're not going to lose that anymore. We're going to bring jobs back.
Yeah.
And I think he said something along the lines of, Danielle standing up for her own interests. So
Yeah.
he's very, very good at threading the needle and answering these reporters' questions when they're trying to get him
Yeah.
to fall into a trap where other conservative leaders have fallen into that before. But it's because he knows his message. He
Yeah.
knows his message. He knows what he wants to say, and he's
It
he's
was
been doing it for a while. He's got skills.
Yeah, like Andrew Scheer kind of lost the election on the abortion issue,
Yes.
and he couldn't articulate what his message was on it
Well,
and what he believed.
I don't understand how he hadn't like come up with something to say.
Yeah, well, it's true, and I just will say, like, for myself personally on this, it's like, if cancel culture was such a big deal for so long, and it still is, but it's really gone down quite a bit in the
Yeah.
game. Like, people don't really get canceled anymore, at least not like they used to. Like when Don Cherry
Yeah.
got canceled, and I'm trying to think of other. There's lots of people that got legitimately fired and canceled.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays, uh, it's more acceptable to speak up against these certain things. But when Shear was doing it, it's like, I think it was so he just got spooked by the question, and
Yeah.
couldn't bounce back from it. Like, I still feel that way. It's like, I feel like it's just like a minefield, no matter which side you're on in this debate. And it's just going to blow up in your face no matter what you say. Like, even you bringing up this topic, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, should we even talk about this? But like, democracy requires conversation, and
Uncomfortable conversations too.
uncomfortable conversation. And I don't like, I'm nice Saskatchewan boy here. It's like, I don't even like having the conversation, but it is important. And I think there can't be things off limits to talk about. And this is one of them. And I think Pierre is kind of not excited by all the woke ideology that's out there and the different gender things. He obviously is not a huge fan, and thinks there needs to be a bit of a shift back to common sense on that.
Well,
And
and
that's
voters. Oh, sorry, I finished there.
no, yeah, yeah, shifting what you're saying. I think, yeah, you're right. Voters are on that path too, where they think, maybe it's gone a bit too far here. It's like, yeah, we get
Yeah.
people, feel certain ways and whatnot, but it's like, it just seems like in the public space, it's gone too far, the conversation. And the
Yeah.
fact we can't, kind of balance it out a bit, it seemed a little bit too much for people.
Well, and voters will respect authenticity and consistency in message
They will.
10
Yeah.
times out of 10 over
Yeah.
someone who, and we saw this with Aaron O'Toole in 2021. No disrespect to Aaron O'Toole personally,
Mhm.
but like there was that thing with the guns where he backed off
Yeah.
a little bit, and then the carbon, the thing he never actually
Yeah.
named.
It's the carbon tax that, like, it was like a savings account for yourself.
Yeah.
And it was like the weirdest thing ever. And
Yeah.
um, yeah,
But voters sniff that out immediately. Like they
oh,
can
they
tell
do. You're right.
immediately. And so if
For
you
sure.
if you just remain consistent to who you are, that's why Trudeau has seen success for the up until like the last couple of years. Like he was very
Yeah.
consistent
Yeah,
to
you're
who he
right.
was and his
Good point.
message, and it worked. Doug Ford's
Right.
done the same thing. Every successful politician
Mhm.
just doesn't
Consistency.
is consistent and doesn't change the script too much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's actually a really good point, is like, what you're getting out of the politician. I think
Yes.
with Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole, people were unsure what they were getting. And I think why Pierre's having a lot of success, it's like, you're going to get this type of, like it or not, you're going to get a pretty
Yeah.
right of center person that believes in small government, people rising up rather than government. There's going to be a lot of change. And it's like, if you're not good with it, that's okay. But like, you're very clear with Pierre what you get.
Yes. Yeah. People will take the devil they know over the devil they don't like nine
Yeah.
times out of 10.
Well, and like, people didn't even like Trudeau in the last two elections. Like, he lost the
No.
popular vote in at
Yeah.
least one of those, maybe both.
Both. It was
And
both.
it was both, yeah. And so people didn't like him, but they didn't trust the conservative leader enough. There wasn't
Yes.
enough. I think you're bang on, Greg. Like, the consistency is huge there. It's like, you're just unsure. There's sort of this cognitive dissonance in your mind where you're like, I just don't, I just don't trust that guy. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
He seems like he's hiding something. I
Yeah.
think that's
It's
the big
why
thing.
Rob Ford won twice in Toronto. Like he probably would have
There's
won
no,
again had he not run into
you're
the
right.
drug issues. Like,
Yeah, you're right. There's no hiding what Rob Ford was thinking or doing. It's like,
no.
he's clearly a troubled man, but it's like, exactly what he's all about.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's really important for leaders to actually lean into what they are and what they
Yes.
believe.
Yeah.
It's incredibly important because, yeah, you're right. People sniff that inauthenticity out immediately.
Oh yeah, gosh, yeah, yeah. And even people who would tentatively agree with that politician will be immediately turned off
Yeah.
by that flip flopping.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right.
All right, chirp of the week. I'll give it over to you because it has to do with our second play.
Oh yes. So with all of Danielle Smith taking photos with all these people, Naheed Nenshi, sorry, Naheed Nenshi, is he? That's how it's actually said. He's the NDP opposition leader now. He used to be mayor of Calgary. Said that Danielle Smith was the selfie queen. Was the chirp, which is not a bad chirp. I'll admit. I'm not a big Nenshi fan myself. Most people in Calgary, if you've lived here for some time, you're not. But yeah, that was a pretty good chirp. And basically, he said, "Well, no, none of these leaders, reposted or like replied back with their own photos about her, so she's clearly doing nothing," which I think is completely false. But yeah, it was a pretty good play for Nenshi. Nenshi is known for these sort of pretty mean, arrogant chirps, I would say. Sometimes they work for him, sometimes they backfire on him.
Very
And
powerful Mean Girls energy. Very
yes,
powerful.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so Nenshi he's one of these guys that he has quite the ego on him, and he has to watch out for his arrogance level because again, people are going to sniff that out. And people of Calgary, when you talk to them, they're like, he's an arrogant jerk, this guy. That's sort of what they say about him, at least in my circles. Probably, lots of people do like him in Calgary. I shouldn't say that, but there is sort of this arrogance to him. But like a good chirp is kind of arrogant, right? So if you're gonna do it, lean into it, and maybe that's his style.
Yeah,
Maybe
fair enough.
if he can chirp people, make it happen. So not bad there, Nenshi, who in my opinion hasn't really done anything since he's been elected as NDP leader. It's like what has he done? I haven't really heard anything other than this, a couple things and a few tweets and videos that he's produced. But yeah, he hasn't really taken any clear stances on anything.
No,
So,
he's going to run in Edmonton Strathcona, so he'll finally have a
yeah.
seat actually, which is an improvement for his sake.
Yeah, so at least he's in the legislature and he can be part of question period. And maybe people don't realize that if you're not elected, you can't be in the legislature, you can't be taking part in question period, which is where a lot of the game gets played and a
Yes,
lot of the media attention happens. So
that's where you get your
um,
clips, your daily clips that you share on social media. If you can't be in there,
that's
you can't get your clips.
that's right. And the media cycle revolves around that too. If you've ever worked in one of these buildings, question period basically drives the media cycle for the entire week
Yeah,
because it's the issues that get brought up there that get stories and they go into scrums after that. And then there's stories written about the scrums and what happens there. And then that's how the media get all their news. And
yeah.
they have a job to do. That's how they do their job. And so that's an important part of the game as well.
Moving on to our sin bin. I'll let you go
Oh,
first
yes.
because you got the more interesting one.
Oh, yes. Okay.
You
I
had
have.
your LinkedIn post about it.
Yeah, I did a couple LinkedIn posts about this, so I'll share this. This is I thought was just funny because people were, so it's
Oh
like
my
I liked
gosh.
her logo, but people are like, "What is going on with her profile?" I mean, she looks,
Why? Who? If you were I want to hear from you. Like, what? If you were the person who approved this,
yeah,
find it. Email me. Somehow find me. I want to know why this decision was made.
yeah. So I, yeah, and people were like showing like Chinese leaders that have like similar profile pictures with like the deep red behind and everything, and then I kind of made the comment. It's like, if you're a digital person, why are you trying to make your candidate look like Satan? It's just why it's just and so she changed it eventually, which was good.
Yeah,
But the other problem here was and I thought this was quite funny, is her launch was first of all on a Sunday, which I was like, why is it on a Sunday? Because
bad
no one's
call.
paying attention on a Sunday. But her video was so bad, the audio was so bad that they had to take the video down. And so her whole announcement was basically kaput. And she had several protesters rush the stage.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. At one point, people thought they were chanting Freeland, Freeland, but they were chanting some like anti-Israel thing. I think it was Palestinian anti-Israel protesters that were there. And then they rushed the stage a bunch of times. So it was like incredibly awkward. Like,
No
if you're doing
security. Like, oh,
yeah. Like the
painful.
principle I have here for the sin bin is like, one, you have to pick a venue that has good connected wired internet is
Yes.
very important. And so like just, a weak Wi-Fi signal is really not good enough. Sometimes you get a good enough cell coverage on these different boxes that work well for that, but it's like you need a dedicated internet source, first of all. And then
Yeah.
obviously you have to spend money on the AV people,
Yeah.
especially with an initial launch. Like that's your first big thing. Like after you launch, you can't actually get a lot of attention. It's really difficult unless you're taking very controversial positions to get attention for yourself. So your
Yeah.
launch has to be great. And so that was a problem. No, yeah, you got to have security, especially if you're expecting protesters, because Freeland's been in power and the deputy prime minister for a long time, the finance minister. She's going to get attention from people, and they know this is a big deal. So the protesters are gonna show up for that. And so yeah, you got it's venue selection, it's making sure you have good AV and internet and some security there is kind of important. And so yeah, her failure to launch was not great.
And even before this, on was it Friday or Saturday, she technically soft launched via an article in the Toronto Star that was paywalled.
Right. That was the other problem. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Like, get a Substack, create your own Substack, and just publish it for everyone to read.
Yeah. And if I'm being fair to Liberal campaigners here, which I don't try to do, but I will say the game that gets played behind the scenes is complete chaos because,
oh yeah,
Trudeau resigned. I think they were kind of expecting it, but it was a bit of a shock, I think, for people. So it's like, okay, we got to launch these campaigns, and being on the other end of these, where you're helping a leadership candidate get going, it's like we got to get a logo and a launch and videos and campaign team. You're trying to like figure out all this, and you just don't have enough time in your waking hours to get everything you need done. And you might, and even like to spend the money on the AV, you're like, well, we need this for the $350,000 entry fee. And so it's like, we need to get in first. So it's like, we had to use every bit of money we have for that. We can't spend 10 grand on AV. That's crazy talk, right? You're just barely trying to get all these donations in. So, I give, just because I might be in the situation at some point where it's like, we don't have the greatest launch. We haven't had one that's been bad. So that's good, but it's complete chaos when you're doing these things. And she was trying to get in before the Trump inauguration. So I get, that's maybe why she did it on a Sunday. I probably still would have waited until it was done properly and do it on like the Tuesday or Wednesday, even though that's kind of late. It's better to do it well and wait than to do a horrible launch.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Carney is now, since that, Carney has sucked up all the airtime. If she was trying to overtake him, it did not work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
All right. So my sin bin, I have two small ones because I don't have to go too deeply into them. Other leadership aspirant, Karina Gould. First of all, she didn't make her slogan "Go for Gould," which was a major mistake.
Oh. Okay.
I don't even know if she had a slogan, but she tweeted out her main launch tweet was like, I'm here to listen to Canadians and be a source of direct communication, and she turned off the comments on that post.
Not good.
I was like, guys. Second one, major leadership aspirants downplaying either Quebec itself or French language in Quebec and in Canada in general.
Doesn't go well.
Chandra Arya, now disqualified Chandra Arya, somehow made the claim that French didn't matter in Quebec. And then Carney over the weekend made a comment that French was on the decline, which is like, you don't make those comments. Mm-hmm. If you want to do well in Quebec, which is going to be a difficult area for Carney because his French was quite harsh, very poor. Right. You don't then go and say, well, it's on the decline anyway. Who cares? Right. Just major mistake, like running for politics in Canada 101 stuff.
Yeah. Those are good sin bins.
Those were only 2 minutes. Yours was like a 4-minute, almost like ejection from the game, but mine were only a couple,
No, those are great. Well, I know we're running out of time. Why don't we kick it to the Brad Wall interview right now?
Yes.
And just to tee it up a bit for people here is the reason why I think this is such an important episode is because we're not just asking him about the issues of the day here. We're actually asking him why he was such a good leader and how he maintained his integrity throughout his entire political career. And just so you know how rare this person is, this leader, is he was the most popular premier in Canada for a decade. He completely changed the trajectory of a province. And he was very well liked by both sides, honestly. Like there's people, that certainly didn't like him, but he was fairly well liked across the country. People thought he should be prime minister. And he actually went out on a high. Like how rare is that? That you see someone go out, give up power, and do a great transition of power that has led to subsequent majority governments by Scott Moe as premier. Yeah. And he did it in the most honorable way possible. And so what I was trying to get at in this interview, and you're helping me, Greg, is like, how did you do that, man? Like, how did you win in public life without losing yourself? And I think it's so valuable to hear about his upbringing and his values and his principles that really helped him get there. And I think leaders need to really watch this interview, glean from him how he's able to do this. And it will really make them far better leaders that have longevity and legacy, which Brad Wall has. And he's just a terrific man. He's one of the best. And I've worked with a lot of politicians, and a lot of them have been great, but none of them have been the quality of character and individual. That's Brad. And so yeah, it was a fun interview with him. You have to sort of maybe skip past the parts of him making fun of us if you want to get to the juice
Yeah,
quicker.
yeah. Don't watch
Yeah,
that. Yeah, don't watch
yeah.
that.
Well, you can watch it if you like. A former Premier making fun of some staffers, some recovering staffers. So it's good. But yeah, let's kick it to the great Brad Wall, who we're just honored to have on.
There.
I do.
Perfect.
Well, our first inaugural guest here is the great former Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall, 14th Premier of Saskatchewan. Mr. Wall, good to see you again. Thanks for doing this.
Easy on the Mister. Mister's at home in Swiftcurrent.
Okay, all right, very good then.
Yeah.
So we want to talk a lot about how to win in public life without losing yourself today. So those will be some interesting questions. Hopefully, questions you've never really been asked before is sort of the plan here, and get to some of the personal side of it. And the first question that is very important: your post-political life. You've been helping a lot of businesses across Western Canada and beyond expand, grow, working with a lot of different leaders. But what I really want to talk about is your ranching endeavors. Would you maybe share a little bit about what you're doing on the ranch?
No, not before I do this.
Okay.
Derek, and for those folks tuning into this inaugural episode of the podcast, Derek and I are from the same hometown. Our families knew each other. And Derek was a senior member of my staff in my old job. We had the best social media team in the country, led by you, Derek. So now that's the last nice things we need to really say about each other. I think we're good. But yeah, it's good to see you again, and congratulations on all your success in building your business at MASH there. I'm not going to answer any questions until you answer a question, Derek. And that question is, have you yet seen Tombstone, the movie?
So yes, I've seen Tombstone, but you keep saying that I haven't. And
no,
so
but you admitted well, it didn't count because you finally did watch it.
Yeah.
After all the browbeating from both Paul and I. But then I think you said you fell asleep in the movie.
For part of it, I was very tired when I watched it, but I woke up. In these old westerns are a little slow in parts, but they're also very good in other parts too. So I like when what was the guy that was really sick and
have you then? Well, the fact that you have to ask who is really sick. This is Val Kilmer playing Doc Holliday, doing an outstanding. Right. Should have been best supporting actor. I think anyone would agree. It's objectively true, but at that time anyway, and still now, I think the Academy Awards or whatever they are, they don't like westerns. So I think Unforgiven by Clint Eastwood years ago shocked everybody when it won Best Picture, and that was like early 2000s or something like that. It was also a great movie that you probably haven't seen, but I'm glad you kind of watched some of it because it is just outstanding. And even to this day, 2025, people use lines from the movie all the time. I'm your Huckleberry. There's so many of them. They're mostly the Doc Holliday lines from Val Kilmer. But so, if you're going to be sort of relatable, Derek, and in your business, I think you should be. You should know when someone says, I'm your Huckleberry, that you should know where it comes from and maybe be able to counter with, look like somebody walked over your grave, or some other line from the movie and happily surprise them, and then sign a big deal with your firm because they're impressed with your knowledge of Tombstone. Anyway, you should watch it again and stay awake, and then we can be friends again, which is another line from the movie, actually.
Well, okay, so I have to do better than just passively watch it. I need to watch it 5, 10, 20 times like you yourself have done. Something like that, right?
Something like that. I think it's probably more than 5 or 10 times. Yeah, be off to a good start.
So that's your great advice, people, is watch Tombstone. That's watch Brad Wall.
Truly, it's if it's not the best Western ever, it's not the best Western. The best Western, I think, is not even a movie. The best Western is a TV miniseries from the 90s called Lonesome Dove. So that's another take home for you guys today, if you haven't seen it. That stars Robert Duvall and Tom Jones and a and Danny Glover and a bunch of guys. And it's kind of loosely based on the true story of the cattle drives from Texas to Montana to settle in Montana. It's this epic show with wonderful lines and great acting, and the videography is obviously outstanding. So if you haven't seen that movie, Lonesome Dove, or that series, you should remedy that too. There's a couple of guys that are the two stars in the show, Robert Duvall's character and Tommy Lee Jones, are loosely based on actual characters that did that very thing. And one of them was Oliver Loving, and the other one is Charles Goodnight. And in fact, the Chuck wagon was kind of innovated and named for Charles Goodnight. There you go. There's some really important non-political information for everybody to have. And there's a certain guy from the Cypress Hills area who's a singer-songwriter who wrote a song called The Last Loving Words. And it's sort of based on some of what happens in that TV series that was true in life too. So there you go.
So do you know this country music star at all? Have you
just barely?
Barely. Okay. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Brad is actually more famous because of his son Colter Wall than he is for his exploits in politics, which are many. But Colter's kind of a big deal nowadays, and
he's doing very well. Yeah. And you know what? To segue then to your first question that I dodged.
Yes, you're good at that.
Classic politician.
Yeah, classic, typical politician. He does he's the operator for a yearling operation that I'm sort of a silent partner. I think he's kind of jokes around when I say that, that I'm a silent partner. It's noting that I'm especially silent when like there's fencing to do or something that isn't
real work. You don't do the real work.
Thing that isn't like horseback or something that I gather. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm partners in, he's the operator and the majority guy, but in that yearling operation, there. And but I volunteer, and I'm so thrilled when some of the new really good friends and neighbors that we've met will call and say, "Hey, we got to go gather," or I'm going to I want to ride through my pairs, and do you want to come along? And I just absolutely love it. I'm kind of I'm a wannabe cowboy dreamer for a long time. Right. So the fact that I got to do my dream job and still enjoy my post-political career, doing some consulting and business development and advisory work, but also this other stuff I'm just so blessed. I'm very grateful. I'm just absolutely loving it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great. And
nice.
You have a horse. Awesome.
And I'm I don't think there's not like scout badges that you earn, of course. But, if there were one for getting run over by a really, really angry cow in the pens during a branding of some replacements,
yeah,
I have that badge that just happened just before Christmas, and I was pretty scared. I got actually chased up the fence twice. These were really, really seem waspy, as they say, or angry replacement cows that were bought at Heartland in Swift Current, which you know well.
Yep.
Brought to a very good friend's ranch, and so he invited me over they had to brand these, and we were trying to get him from the pens and down the alley and into the chute. And I got chased up the fence twice, and then the third time I was backpedaling, like trying to be like a Saskatchewan Rough Rider defensive back and backpedal as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And in my efforts to move faster, I fell. I tripped. Sort of fell on my butt, and the cow came right at me like full speed. And I held up this elbow, and it was kind of sore for a while, but it could have been a lot worse. I'm convinced, I didn't know because my eyes are closed. I'm convinced that she kind of slowed down her momentum, or it would have been more than a slow elbow. So this buddy of mine who keeps telling me that, I really haven't done anything until I've been bucked off a horse. He came up afterwards and said, "You know what? That counts. So you may not have."
Nice.
Yeah. So and he's a KG veteran, wow. He's a cowboy and a rancher. So I'm going to take that and say, now I do not have to get bucked off a horse to be able to claim something. I'm not sure what yet.
Well, I think, I'm no cowboy, as you know. I'm a small city boy from Saskatchewan, but I didn't make it out of the country enough. But like I would say, hey, you're a partner in a ranch with your son who does a lot of the ranching. plus you own a horse, and now you've gotten trampled, or close to trampled and
Yeah,
died, doing some of the work. So like you got to be close to being a real cowboy at this point.
I think I got a long way to go. Got a long way to go. And, we call it the ranching too, Derek, but, because Colter has this other career he needs to attend to, we run a yearling operation. And so for folks that don't know, most of the ranches that you think of were cow calf. And so I'm thinking about them right now and winter, because they got to feed their cows all winter long. And that's a lot of work. It's just a different thing. When you run a yearling operation exclusively, or a grasser operation, you buy them in early spring, and you feed them, you grass them basically on your land and take care of them. And hopefully they put on a lot of weight and survive healthily until you sell, in our case, some early in the fall. So, Colter does most of the work, but I do try to show up for fun stuff.
That's great. Do you ever get attached to them? Like, you have to, get rid of them pretty quickly. It's like, hey, I'd like to keep them for longer, or,
No,
you're done with them. No.
I kind of asked Colter that once when we were watching a cattle liner take a load of those yearlings up, away up the hill. And he just said, no, because it's kind of, you want to make sure they all survive and they're all healthy. Right. There's not a huge amount of stress in that maybe, but it's a concern. It's a worry. And when and you did okay, then I think there's some relief to say, see ya. In our case, a couple of years, Colter's gone with heifers, not steers. And so it's sort of, see ya, girls. We'll see what happens next spring.
Right. Hey, well, that's good.
And getting run over probably helps, I'm so relieved to now be free of this.
I want to tell you, Gregory, that hamburger and steak have never felt or tasted so good as when you've been almost maimed by one. That's why we eat.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are they Black Angus, or what are they?
Yeah, they're a mix sometimes. That Colter puts the packages together, mostly Black Angus. Yeah. And we had a few herd markers this year and last, like a few red ones snuck in there and a white one. So probably some Charlet in there somewhere, but we try to put together packages with the buyer, and it's a little bit of whatever you can get. But you've given me this soapbox. Let me climb up on it just for
please do.
Take it away.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've been doing is volunteering on the Canadian Cattlemen Association sort of advocacy committee. I don't think that's the official title of the committee, but it's basically volunteers who are providing some input and some advice to the CCA on how to be a bit more proactive, like I've been asking the oil and gas companies to do when I left politics and during it, in terms of dealing with some of the environmental objections, some of the NGOs that say things that are untrue or sometimes half true about that industry and about the beef industry, especially the climate change crowd. And what's lost, what's never talked about, and through the CCA, there's been a documentary produced. I recommend it to all of those that listen to this podcast, and you guys and anyone you know. It's called Guardians of the Grasslands. I think it's only about 25 minutes. Yeah, you've seen it.
It's quite good. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And so it just makes the case that one of the ecosystems in the world that's really endangered is the North American grasslands. It's every bit as endangered as an oceanic ecosystem or the rainforest. And it's the endangerment risks, everything that any ecosystem that's in danger risks, habitat, flora and animals, plants, obviously, and it's a great sequester. The grasslands are a great sequester of CO2. So if CO2 is your thing, if climate change is your thing, 60,000 acres is 2 million tons worth of CO2, I think. And if we see more and more of this marginal land or grassland broken up, of course, that is a release of CO2, a significant release of CO2, again, if that's your thing. And it's less and less so for me, I think. But we can maybe get into that a little bit later or not. I'm fine if not. But those for NGOs and others that are worried about it and worried about climate change, there needs to be some awareness. So I think I tweeted something like, if you use a plastic or a paper straw to save, to save an ecosystem, then have a hamburger and save the one right in your backyard. Because the guardian is the cattleman. is the rancher, that is the steward of the grassland, preserving it. And, 120, 30 years ago, there's 30 million bison that were the keystone species that supported, were the reason that habitat, that ecosystem could thrive and survive. Well, they're mostly gone. And so now the guardian, the steward, the keystone species to preserve those grasslands are cattle, is beef cattle. So
that's really good.
Have a burger.
What I agree, and what I like about it is that you're not buying into the narrative of certain environmental groups. You're creating a new version of the narrative. You're not buying what they're selling. You're saying, no, this is the reality here, and it's a different spin on, rather than just responding, oh no, it's actually good. It's like, no, it's like this is the reality. These are the facts here, and it tells a great story. So
using their case, you're right, which we should be doing that more in advocacy on any number of issues, and we should be doing it as well in politics to a greater extent, because if you just game say no to everything or want to argue with everything, you eventually lose. I think you lose a bit of credibility, and you lose, I think, just of people that otherwise perhaps support your position, because you're saying, all right, well, I know this is your issue. Your issue is climate change. Here is the case for the industry that I'm passionate about, framed in terms of climate change, in terms of the thing that you care about, rather than just, game saying no or name call, getting into an argument with name calling, trying to denigrate their position.
Telling your own story.
Yeah, telling
that's the key.
And I know you guys help your clients do that, so
we certainly do. No.
Well, I can imagine your next merch opportunity: save the planet, eat a burger. So I want like 10%. Well, I'm in on the ground floor. I only want 10%.
All right. Oh yeah, checks.
Yeah, Greg does a lot of merch. He can do that for you. But I want to pivot to your political history, Brad, because I always have had a great respect for you, and many have, for being very grounded as a leader. And there could have been a lot of times where you got prideful. You've had these massive majority government wins. The province experienced a decade of growth under your leadership. You're the most popular premier in Canada for a decade. If there's any leader that could have got prideful and tried to hang on to power much longer than otherwise he should have, it certainly could have been you. But you always seem to stay grounded, and you always seem to be just Brad to people throughout the province and throughout the country. And when people ask me, how was Brad behind the scenes? Was he the same guy in public, which is very well regarded, as he was behind the scenes? And my answer is always the same. It's that he was better. And I think that's very rare in politics and in leadership in general. So the question I want to ask, and just tell some of your stories of, how did you stay grounded through all those years in politics, when there's so many different things flying at you, and you have all the pressures and stresses and successes and people saying how great you are. And for a time, everyone wanted you to be prime minister. There's still a lot of people that want you to be prime minister at some point. So how did you deal with all that? How did you stay grounded? What were some of the systems and habits that you used to do that?
It was my raising, I think. And the faith that came along with my raising. Had I ever had an inclination, and I really didn't, had I ever had an inclination to start sort of believing our own hype or other people's hype, I think I would have got a visit from my folks, and my wife's a good force for good in terms of keeping our whole household grounded. I grew up learning that pride goeth before a fall, and I believe it. I really do believe it. I used to say, and I'm sure I said it to you, Derek, that let's not take ourselves too seriously.
Right.
Let's leave others to do that. Right. What I meant by that was, if we keep our head down and do the work and admit mistakes when they happen, and with a little bit of luck and some providence have some success, we don't need to take the credit. People will give you the credit. And that would be my message here. It's so true. And you would know this, Derek, you're on the front lines of communicating some of these successes. Most of them were economic, because we were a growth party. We wanted population growth. We wanted investment, to increase investment to the province. We wanted better job numbers. We wanted wholesale statistics to be improving every month as a province. We would make sure to trumpet. You did a great job, but our team, both social and conventional media, we did a great job of heralding of trumpeting every single one of those positive moments that happened over 10 years. But we never said, hey, look what the Sask Party government has done. Hey, look what we've done. Look what I've done. We just said, we said things like, and it was, I'm sure it got, maybe it got repetitive for folks. We just said, congratulations, Saskatchewan. Congratulations on the economy you're growing because of your good work, because of your entrepreneurial spirit. Here's the new job numbers. We'd say, congratulations, Saskatchewan. Here's the new population numbers. Welcome these newcomers to our province. And guess what? The credit came back to us, whether it was deserved or not. Yeah, and I don't see that a lot. I also have always strongly believed in I-ectomies when it comes to speeches and comms. So take out the I's from your speech and your communications and your press releases. I did this. I will, or even when I will do this. We talked about we were a team, first of all.
For sure.
We're not just the premier. It's not just the leader of the party. It's a caucus. It's a team behind the caucus. It's we. And so use that word. I just think the more often you can do that and just avoid saying I think it's better received, and it helps remind you. It keeps you humble, right? If you're remembering, all right, there's the whole team back here. Plus, there's good luck, the commodity pricing. Plus, there's the blessings of Providence and all the resources we have in the province. This is not a singular effort by any means, and I think all of that helps. So it's probably how I was raised, and then again, Tammy keeping me grounded. And honestly, I'm grateful to my folks for that, and because I'm just sort of, to do anything else felt weird. It just didn't seem right or consistent or frankly true. So I know, Derek, you've heard me say this so many times, but I would ask, I think early on after I became leader of the opposition in 2004, the Ides of March 2004, by the way, not the most auspicious date to be chosen.
That's right. Yeah.
It was March 15th, 2004. And I would ask that my team would ask whoever was introducing me at a function, Chamber of Commerce or a political event, whatever it was, to not introduce me and then end with, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the next Premier of Saskatchewan. Because I wasn't that. I was aspiring to be that. We were aspiring to win the next election, but we hadn't won anything yet. And so I think it was really important it just sets a bit of a mindset. So I just said, introduce me as the leader of the Saskatchewan Party or the leader of Her Majesty's official opposition.
Yeah. And I remember you always saying, and making sure our tweets said this, anything, if we have the honor to serve, we will do this.
Right. That's it. When I'm premier, I'm going to do. No, just to me, that sounds presumptuous. If we have the honor to serve, if we have the chance to form the government, here are the things we're going to try to do. Yeah. And I think it's really important to keep the promises you made. That may seem fairly foundational, but most people think of politicians as not doing that, of all stripes. Mm-hmm. So we should be in the business of surprising people on two levels, right, Derek? I used to say, let's surprise people by keeping the promises we made. Yep. And two, let's find where some people would stereotype the Saskatchewan Party as a conservative party, not interested in some social issues. That's not true. We know it's not true, but let's maybe find some of these social issues that need to be fixing and fix it as best we can and surprise people to say, well, that kind of came out of left field for me, that the Saskatchewan Party would be the one that would be championing support for and housing for people with intellectual disabilities, as you know we did, Derek. Yep. So, there's when you're truly humble and you're going to, and you've got your head down and you're trying to do the job and keep your commitments you've made, you will find these opportunities as a new government or as a political party to surprise people in a good way. What we did with the folks, what we did in terms of supports for people with intellectual disabilities wasn't counter to the founding principles of the Saskatchewan Party. It wasn't left wing or right wing or middle. It's just the right thing to do. The most vulnerable people in our society, and so many of them were on a wait list for even the dignity of a home. So why wouldn't we, if we had some resources, and we did, budgets in those years were good, were flush. They weren't so much for the last 5 years, but they were start. So why don't we invest some of that in folks who are the most vulnerable among us?
Yeah, no, that's great. And like the one thing that we always talked about a lot, and the media talked about a lot about, is that you'd go home to Swift Current every weekend or wherever you could. And I remember you saying in some speeches in different places where, I got a lot of my advice at Safeway.
Yep.
When you're in Swift Current and Safeway and people stopping the aisle. So just maybe talk about going back home to Swift Current and talking to people there and how that grounded you. And obviously you're there with your folks and Tammy and the family, and that helped too, I'm sure.
Well, originally it was a family-related decision, and it became to have benefits on the job, I think. Tammy and I talked about it. Our kids were well settled in school, quite young when I became opposition leader, but settled in, and it's a 2-hour drive, double lane highway. But there was an assumption that we'd move to Regina, I think by some, and we just decided not to. We met Regina. We lived there for a while, nothing against Regina, but Swift Current's my hometown, and it turned out to be a real benefit, as you've alluded to here, Derek, because I did get my best advice at Safeway and Swift Current or at CHIRP, or because there you're without any of the trappings of the office. When I was in Swift Current, I was just Brad. I mean, I happened to have that other job, and so I think people I think they felt comfortable coming up and saying, "Man, Highway 363 sucks." And you guys,
that was a terrible highway.
You said you were going to. I think actually this still kind of sucks or sucks again. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
But my point is that people would feel free to approach, and I had then I had ready access to grounding that we just talked about in the earlier segment, right? From my wife and from my family and my kids. I remember I came home one day and I was sort of in, I don't know, maybe a little grumpy. Walked in the door and took off my coat and walked around the kitchen, and Tammy, I think, was making like chili or something. And I looked at the chili and I said, "Oh, I don't want any kidney. You put kidney beans in my chili." And I was just being picky about stuff. And then I was on the kids about their homework, and I just walked in the door, and Megan, our oldest, said, "Dad, when you're here, you're not the premier." So you get moments like that. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They will humble you. Kids will humble you.
This chili is awesome. I wish there were more kidney beans in it. You can have a different approach. To this day, I don't think Chile is a place for kidney beans, fellas, but I've learned it would be just appreciate if someone else is making it.
It's a strong policy position you have there.
I do. It's very strong.
Yeah. Greg, you got a question here.
Yeah. Fire away, Greg.
Yeah. So, I was going to say, I'll tell you, not to, inflate any egos any further, but
don't worry
to tell you how like impressive the career was. Like, we in Ontario, I remember, and I won't tell you what tier of education it was so that no one feels too old, but I remember being in school and thinking, hey, that Brad Wall guy from Saskatchewan, he's doing a good job, eh? People in the center of the universe. So if we're talking about Saskatchewan, that's pretty important. So, but, we're talking a little bit about that life outside of politics. And I think it's obviously very important to do that. What did yours, and I mean, in terms of how did you disconnect? How did you unwind? Was it chess, Xbox, roller coasters? Like, what did you do to unwind and relax and have that life outside of politics?
Well, that's a great question. Thanks for making me feel old. When we were learning about
it could have been university. Who knows?
We were learning about you in grade 3, Brad. Here's what they but that's cool. Thanks, Greg. I did a bunch of stuff. I golfed a little bit. I golfed a lot more before politics. It just takes up so much time, but I golfed a little bit. I probably watched too much TV. You go downstairs, sit just plunk down in front of the TV and watch either news networks or whatever. And we had the Oakland and now Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah. That didn't really help the stress level at all.
That made it worse. Yeah.
They're so terrible. Still are epically terrible. But I know what Derek goes through cheering for the Leafs. It's just a disappointment after disappointment.
It is.
You got to pick a good team.
Yeah.
Start picking a good team here.
I'm going to stick. Anyway, so, for a while I was playing, you mentioned video games. And I think, well, I don't think I played any video games, but Colter got Red Dead Redemption. That was a Western video game.
Great game. Oh, yeah. I'm playing it right now, actually, the Red Dead Redemption 2. It's fantastic.
Like right now during the podcast?
I got bored during the podcast.
Yeah. But I did that for a while, not, I guess, for very long. So, but probably not a lot. I probably didn't have a lot. I should have had more in terms of outside of political activities. That might have helped, because if your downtime is just basically idle time, sitting in front of a TV, and that was probably what I did too much of. Not that it's going to sound like I just watch TV all the time.
Well, the point that I wanted to make with that question was that you had a lot of hobbies outside of politics. Like, you had things of interest. Like, there's some people in politics I find all they do is politics. That's like all they think about and breathe and live every day. It's like you loved Waylon Jennings and obviously your Sunsker and Graham Dillette and old cars and Western shows and all kinds of different. And you coached football for a while when Colter was young. And
sure did for about 5 years. That was great. See, Derek's still helping me out, giving me the.
I gotta keep you on the straight.
Once a staffer, always a staffer.
He's helping out with content, like he always says. What too funny. It's true. I did all those things, and so they were a good distraction. And music has always been. I grew up in a house that always had 8 tracks going in the car, and lots of music at church, which I really like. I still like.
Yeah, me too.
Not so much the choruses. I'm kind of an old hymns guy or old gospel songs guy, but I like that stuff. And then country music. So you're right. I spend a lot of time with that stuff. I actually noodle around on my guitar a little bit. I know all 3 chords, so that's good.
That's important.
That's a start. Yeah.
I would kind of write a little bit. I'd write.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You, for me, it just always seemed like you were more grounded.
Just for my. They're not very good. It's good therapy though to sit down and try to find a melody, which I'm particularly bad at, but then try to say something in a song or tell a story and make it is not easy. That is tough, and also have it not be crappy is not as tough. So far,
that helps.
I've been able to do the rhyming part, but I haven't been able to make them not crappy.
Yeah, I know you also talked a lot about Lincoln throughout your political career, and I remember seeing I don't know if it was like a daily kind of Lincoln, lessons book or something like that. I remember seeing that on your desk at some point. Talk about your sort of how I think you were mentored by Abraham Lincoln in a lot of ways, but maybe just describe how that all worked in your life.
I was and am a huge Lincoln nerd, and what got me going on that was I remember as a kid we went to Disneyland, and which was great. I loved it there. But my favorite thing at Disneyland wasn't Space Mountain or the Matterhorn or the Pirates of the Caribbean, although they would be in the top 5. My favorite thing was a animatronic robot speech by an animatronic Abraham Lincoln called "Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln."
Nice.
Still there to this day. It's just off Main Street, and it was the same presentation. Walt Disney entered in was it the 67 World's Fair or something like that, or something? I think that's what it was. And then he brought it down to Disneyland. It's been there ever since. And that particular show or exhibit is sort of a video of the life of Lincoln. And then the curtain opens and animatronic Abe stands up from his chair and gives this speech. And I was just like blown away. So I went home and went through the Google equivalent of 1975 was the World Book Encyclopedia that my folks had. Thank goodness they did, and started reading there and then grabbing books. And I had that. I had quotes, Lincoln quotes. There was a small book I got at the Lincoln Memorial when I went there years after that I kept, and it had great quotes from Lincoln. And then there was kind of a devotional, like Lincoln's devotional, or what he believed. He wasn't a churchgoer, and he was criticized at the time for not being much of a churchgoer. And he made the case as to why he wasn't, but what he believed. But also just some of the things he wrote. The second inaugural seems to be written on the portals of heaven. It is the bit of political writing or oratory that I have read, including Churchill stuff, and I'm a big fan of that too. But nothing. If you haven't read it and you get a moment, read the second inaugural. It is amazing. And so I thought whatever problems I had as premier, my province wasn't fighting each other and killing each other, and I wasn't. I didn't have to order the killing of my fellow citizens to achieve victory or to achieve something. So you're right. That's a good point, Derek. I was a big Lincoln nerd and still am.
Yeah, and I think it's important for everybody, leaders, no matter where you are, politics, business, nonprofit, is you need people to look up to, past or present, and you had Lincoln to always look to, and I think he helped guide you throughout, even though he wasn't currently living, which I think leaders should be doing more of, which I think is great. And you also mentioned sort of your faith, and obviously that's a big component in your life. And the thing I always appreciated is that you're able to integrate your faith into your public life, but it wasn't a negative. It was actually a positive. And you did it in such a way that I thought you had strong influence based on your values, but it didn't get to that one point where it's off-putting, where people are like, yeah, I don't like this guy because he's a religious zealot or something like that. How did you sort of balance that in your public life?
Well, there's a line there. Excuse me. It's important, I think, because when they elected us, they didn't hire us to be their imam or a pastor or a rabbi.
Right.
Government, and so I think it's important to remember that that it's a secular thing. But I also think it's reasonable that someone's faith is going to be, if they're trying to honor it, and I'm sure I've fallen short so many times, but if you're trying to, that's going to make its way and express itself in things that are said, and even policies that you might bring in, or programs that you might bring in. If faith-based institutions like long-term care and the Catholic Health Ministry can build a long-term care facility and have equal or better service at a equal or lower cost, then I don't really care, and we should be open to faith-based entities who can provide public service on a not-for-profit basis, and worry about the results. And so sometimes, to your point, your question, Derek, sometimes it's not so much what a person's faith will cause them to do, it's what they might be open. It's what they might not be opposed to doing. If that makes sense. Yep. Because some people think there should be absolutely nothing of faith in any public sector endeavor. And so then if that's the case, you deprive yourself of the option of faith-based delivery of the Salvation Army providing the best shelter services, maybe better than any government agency could, of the Catholic Health Ministry being about, the Ahmadiyya Muslim school in Regina, good results. I think it's still there and operating, but you're not limited or restricted from exploring those options because because they happen to be faith-based. So I think that's an important part of it. There are also small things that happen. Like, I don't know if you remember, I think going into my second last session, or maybe it was third last, 17 or 16 or 15, there was, maybe after the 16 election, there was sort of momentum going for the Anglican prayer that starts each day of the legislative session to be done away with.
Yep.
Man, I didn't want that. And it's not an overtly Christian prayer. It is kind of a modified, I think, Anglican prayer, but there's nothing in the prayer that's overtly Christian, I would say, although, that's what it is. But what an important time of reflection in a chamber that probably needs prayer more than any other, a house of government probably needs prayer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember how that went, Derek, but I remember driving to Regina. I think I was driving with Everett to Regina, and all of a sudden, GME on there. That's the news stock station, one of them in Saskatchewan. They're doing the story on the prayer at the legislature, and on comes Mohammed Fayez, one of our MLAs, first Muslim MLA elected to the Saskatchewan legislature, and that happened during my time, obviously. And he, unbidden by me or anyone else, he had called CGME to basically state that it was really, really important to him and a good thing that the prayer continue. So you have the first elected Muslim MLA saying, and he kind of indicated, I'm paraphrasing wrong here, Mohammed hears this, and he's mad at how I'm paraphrasing him. I don't blame him. But basically said, I just take my time during that prayer to think and meditate in my own way and reflect. And I think it's a very, very good way to start the day. So, and we were going to move on it. I had already made some public pronouncements about we're not changing it. But it was really great to get that support from from 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember your line that you used was, "Why would we get rid of it? We need all the help we can get."
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
that's
media was like,
fantastic.
"Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I guess maybe you're right." It's like, and there's certain.
They like that one better, Derek, than the if you don't like the food in prison, don't go to prison.
Yeah, that was a famous line.
They didn't like that one very much. We had, for Greg's benefit, we had riots at one of the correctional facilities.
Oh, shoot.
Over the quality of the food.
Yes. Yeah, I remember one of our colleagues, Drew Wilby, he was in charge. He was doing comms for the ministry at the time, and he had to go and show the media all the food. I remember him saying, "Okay, here's what they get for lunch, and here's what they get for supper." And
not bad, yeah. And then I was at the end of a scrum, and I was annoyed by this anyway, rioting over quality of food in prison. So I just said, well, going to prison is completely optional, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like a restaurant, you don't have to go if you think the food's bad.
Yeah. No, it's good. No, I think you're really right on that. There's a line in these things in public life nowadays. I feel like there's been a shift back to people saying, hey, we actually need more faith-based values in our society, in our community. The fact that we've gotten rid of so many of them and so many of our institutions has actually been a negative. And I think overall the public has somewhat seen that. And I think that's even a shift from when you were in office, where there'd probably be more openness to it now. Not again in like an over the top way, but just in saying like, hey, we all need values. We need kind of time to reflect. And we're all, human beings they typically respond to faith very well for whatever reason. And, I think that's in the soul of a person for the most part. But do you feel like that's sort of changed in public life since you've been in office? I
do. I think stateside it has, certainly. I think not Canada just yet, but maybe. I hope so, because I agree with you. Not to get too much into the Gospels or into all of this, but remember when that the Pharisee or the lawyer tried to trick Jesus, if you're familiar with it in the Bible, to have him name the most important of the laws of Moses.
Right. Yeah.
And he boils it down to 2, right? He said basic, and I'm paraphrasing again, but love God, love your neighbor.
Yep.
So if that was motivating, people in politics, people in any endeavor, love God, love your neighbor, and they were actually acting on that. Be not a bad place. Earth would be a little, not a bad place to live.
Well, we have one final question, and then we got some rapid fire. So, Greg, why don't you fire away with that?
Yeah. So I was going to say, you were in politics. Obviously, it was important to you. But why do you think it's important for other people to get involved? And I guess you could also give, like, maybe, go back in time to when you first got involved. What was it? What was the motivating factor for you to get involved?
Abraham Lincoln in animatronic form.
Of course. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I was interested in politics since grade 6. And I did think for a long time, and it would be such a cool thing if I could just represent Swift Current, federally or provincially, it didn't matter, be the MP, be the MLA, and do politics, public service. And my family all did. Dad was on council for 20, 30, I don't know how long.
Oh, wow, nice.
Mom was a trustee, and Paul, Dad had lawn signs. I got to ask him about what they meant. And first time I ever did that, I said, we had a pre-PC lawn sign up. And I said, first of all, I said, I was really terrified when I walked. I was little. When I walked up, I was scared that it was a realtor sign and that we were moving. Dad said, no, that's a sign. And I said, well, can you tell me the difference? He goes, yeah, there's conservatives and there's liberals in the NDP. And the conservatives believe in free enterprise, and the NDP believe in the government doing everything, and the liberals don't know what they believe.
That sounds like John, yeah.
That sounds like a dad answer.
That was a good dad answer. Anyway, so I grew up around politics, but I always wanted to, and I got involved in youth politics in grade 12 and then at university. And then, again, I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky that I got to do my dream job. But that's kind of where it all came from. And for those that are interested in politics, I think if they're motivated by the fact that they can leave things better than they found them, they can maybe do public service. Maybe it's casework. Maybe it's helping constituents with their issues in government. If that is their motivation, or any of those 3 things, then they're well motivated and they should try. They should do it. And that's what I would try to tell folks when they were considering being a candidate for us. You really can affect change. You can be on the front line, even in opposition. There's private members' bills, or there's casework, or there's advocating for something. You have this amazing sort of soapbox you get as a result of being an elected member, and it is worth it if you want to do it. And I did, and so I'm very grateful.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's about influence for me. It's the idea that you can have influence and make things better. And I think we need way more people to run for office, and I'm sure you would agree with that.
I do.
But I think we need more people to be staffers in these political offices and do work there. I think we need more people advocating for different industries, like you talked about the Cattlemen's Association and energy, and there's so many different things that people need to be advocating for. I know even being on the outside running a company now, we've been able to impact a lot of policy change just by advocating with groups. So get involved with the group. Sometimes we get involved with a group for passion, and then they kind of became a client at some point. Oh, that worked out pretty well. But it's like we've seen significant policy change, and we're not elected. So I think just in a democracy, everybody needs to think about public life and how to make things better and how to have a positive influence wherever they go.
You can kind of get it. It's addicting, right? Once you see even a little bit of progress. And so I did that in my elected life, but that's why I'm volunteered with the Canadian Cattle Association. If you can advocate for things and try to show people some important story that might change their behavior or view in a way that you think is positive. So it's something that never leaves you once you start, if you have an interest. And recruiting candidates was always a priority to try to find and encourage those folks that were motivated in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we got rapid fire here to end it off, and so much appreciate your time here, Brad. So we'll do these real fast.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, what is, when you're on Blur, and I am too, or Greg, you are on Blur background, and it looks like does it not look like there's a giant fur thing on here?
Yeah, it looks like he's being hugged by
it looks like
an animal,
like a dyed moth, and I think you should keep it. You should go with it.
It's the answer is extremely nerdy, so please forgive me, but. So what it is actually is it's from, I don't know if they have them out west, but it's a JYSK store. It's basically like a super discount IKEA, but it's like a lambskin thing. And I don't even know, 10 years ago, I went as Jon Snow from Game of Thrones for Halloween. I had to make like the fur-lined cape thing that they wear, and I now use it. It's now my adornment for my work chair.
You've outed him, Brad.
You know what? That's a kind of an interesting story, but I'd go with the mullet. I would just say, look, because for sure, it looks like it might just be a dyed mullet, and that you'd be the only podcaster in politics that had one of those.
Yeah,
you got to define. Yeah, you got to get out of define yourself from the crowd. So absolutely.
Okay. Well, Brad Wallace said, Greg, you must grow a mullet now. So that's the decree of the former premier.
How do you say no?
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, rapid fire.
Derek, you'll ask one and I'll ask one.
Fire away.
Sure. Okay, I'll
go
start. First. Favorite politician of all time, past or present? I think we know the answer to this one.
Abraham Lincoln.
Easy.
Favorite book?
Team of Rivals, I'd say, but I'm reading one right now that would be at the top of the list. It's called Willie Whalen and the Boys.
Of course.
Book.
Yeah, Waylon Jennings, big fan. If you could instantly master a new skill, what would it be?
I would like to be able to rope better. I've been in a branding pen, and by luck, China just caught, and usually just by 1 foot, which is not good. And I would like to be a roper.
You got to spend more time around our friend Graham Stewart, and then.
Yeah, that's right. Graham, one of my last days in the office, brought in a rope because I asked him to, and he was kind of trying to teach me how to throw some shots. Yeah,
that's great.
Your greatest mentor?
My dad.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Just a thing about your parents here. Like your parents are obviously, just foundational pieces to the culture of South Kern. And I know, your mom's not with us anymore, but just incredible people. And my family knows them, and just, salt of the earth, just incredibly good people. So that's a great answer.
Thank you for saying so.
Most famous person you've got to meet because of being involved in politics?
I got pretty lucky. There's a couple of them. We had very good U.S. trade missions. And so John McCain was really interesting for sure. And I did have an audience with Her Majesty the Queen. That was pretty cool. Arnold Schwarzenegger was really cool. He wears we met him at the embassy, the U.S. embassy and the Canadian embassy in Washington. When he was there for a governor's meeting, he was a governor of California. He wore a lot of makeup, and he stood when the photo time came. He stepped forward a little bit because he was not as tall as I thought Terminator would be, and he steps forward. Photos I learned afterwards, these group shots, so that he's a bit taller.
That's a good tip, actually.
Yeah, it is.
You,
Yeah, well, you're tall enough. You should be in the back.
yeah.
I need to step to the front of the group picture, Derek.
Yeah. No, it's a great tip.
Yeah. Greatest sports moment you recall seeing in person or on TV?
How long do we have? This is going to take a while.
You only get one. It's
Yeah, you got to pick the best.
Okay, it's the Stark and Marsh Vikings of the Minor Football League in Swift Current. I'm the defensive coordinator. I'm coaching that team. Colter's on that team. We're playing against Swift Current Steelers, I believe, in a championship game. Get this straight now. The time is running out. It's a straight time game. Time is running out. We're getting tied. We're getting close. We have a great kicker, John Neufeld. We called him Johnny Thunder. Great kicker. So we decided to put him in the game. He could place kick, but he had better punter, really good punter. We put him in the game. I don't even think it was third down. We put him in the game and just said, punt it through the end zone, because the Canadian rules have that dumb rule. I wish we wouldn't, but we do. So whatever.
Yeah.
We kick it with a rouge, and he kicks it. And for the first time, he does not hammer it like he usually does. And it lands in the arms of one of the Steelers in the end zone. They catch it, right? So what does he do? He's coached up. Well. He punts it out of the end zone to get it out of the end zone, not give up a point. So his coach, Laverne Krylock, has coached him up. He punts it out of the end zone. One of our guys then catches the punt, and he's tackled, so it's going to go to OT, right? Except there were no yards on the play, because there's still no yards on the punt. You've got to give, because you know that, you got to give them the 5 yards, and they didn't. Right. And nobody called it. Our quarterback runs off the field, talks to the head coach, and I'm standing right there, and he goes, "Isn't that no yards too?" We're like, "Yes, it is." So we asked the coach or the ref about that, and he threw the flag after the fact, which really made the other head coach mad, who may have swore.
Yeah, would have made me mad.
Then he got a flag for that. So we're now like at the 10, and now we're like, Johnny Thunder easily going to punt it through the end zone for the Rouge. Yeah. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in sports.
That's a great story.
Plus, we won the championship.
Wow, won it with a rouge. That's like the most Canadian thing ever.
Yeah, right.
It's in French too, of course.
Yeah, I know. It just really bugs me that we reward failure. Like we feel bad. You know, you only had one job on the place kicks, especially maybe on the punt, but on a field goal, you had one job to kick a field goal. You didn't. It happened to go out of the end zone, and so here's a point anyway. It's like equalization in football. I don't like it in Confederation, and I don't like it in football.
Yes. Saskatchewan Premiers can never like equalization. It's just not.
Now that we're a have province, right, Derek? Now that's right. Changed.
Yeah. No longer have not province. I thought you were going to say 2013 Riders.
Yeah. I may have sat in the stands after the game by myself, and may or may not have been weeping openly. That was also my birthday.
I didn't realize that.
Crazy.
I remember the
dressing room, and they're giving me the Grey Cup to drink out of, and I just thought, man, I am the luckiest dude I know.
Yeah, that must have been like the highlight of being premier, is like drinking out of the Grey Cup in Regina after the win.
Probably.
On your birthday, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was probably.
This is actually important for your legacy, Brad. Is I believe the Riders haven't won since you were. So they won twice when you were premier. Is that right, or 3 times?
Here's the political history of the Riders in the Grey Cup. They have never won with the NDP in power.
That's right.
And I'm surprised Scott didn't mention that towards the end of that last election.
Yeah. Just bring that out. That's like the most important talking point.
If you remember, I said we're getting close to the election. The Riders are on a playoff run, and I'm saying just putting it out there. Riders have never won with the NDP in power. In case people haven't figured out who they're voting for and they're not sure if they want it like us, how about the NDP curse of the Rider? So, of course, we got really lucky. Again, we won, and then the Riders won. They beat the Bombers in Toronto in the Great won in 13. And, to this day, they have not won with the NDP in power. Have I said that? Have I said that they the NDP in power? Am I repeating myself?
You have to repeat it as much as possible. It's very important. Political history.
That's politics. You got to repeat and repeat and repeat.
Yeah.
That's right.
Repetition. That's the... Yeah, and the final question was, I don't think I even need to say this, but the greatest Western movie of all time. We started with this. We can end with it.
Well, Tombstone, but if it's a TV series or any cinematic endeavor, Lonesome Dove is even ahead of Tombstone.
Really?
And if it's a straight up movie, it's Tombstone. Yeah,
that's good. Well, we better link to that in the show notes here, and Guardians of the Grassland. We'll definitely link to that too. And
You can watch Lonesome Dove for free on YouTube. The quality's,
really?
but it's still worth it. So you might want to link to that one too for the
Yeah.
for the fans of the Friggen Good podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give them some viewing options.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brad, thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a great honor to speak to you as always. And some of your stories, a lot of nostalgic memories for me, but just I think really important to document someone that was a generational leader for the province of Saskatchewan.
I don't know.
I know you don't like hearing all these nice things about you, but it's too bad.
Yeah.
You can take it and you'll be all right. So,
okay. Well, thanks for having me on the first inaugural episode. I hope it takes off. I hope pretty soon you're rivaling Joe Rogan and other big podcast shows I can't think of right now.
those ones, yeah, the ones that Colter won't go on, right?
Yes, the ones he won't go on.
Yeah, we'll tell that story another time, but basically, yeah, the Colter could be going on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan keeps trying to get him on the podcast, but he won't go on because he's too busy ranching.
Right,
I get it.
He might be doing better in terms of publicity by not going on, because
I know
Post Below goes on there and all these other artists go on there and they talk about it some more. So he's getting he gets shout outs all the time for being Dr. No.
kind of a secret genius strategy he's got going on there. So
if he ever was interested in politics, he'd have been a good finance minister, because you want those folks to just be able to say, no, I don't think we're that.
That's good at saying no. Yeah, that's a good finance minister for sure.
Yeah.
Will of Steel there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, we better end things here. Get you back to your day. Thank you so much again, sir. Take care.
All right, folks, take care.
Thank you very much. God bless.
You bet.
All right, so we hope you enjoyed that interview with former Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall. I must admit, real quick, that I also haven't seen Tombstone. I didn't want to say it to his face. Wow. I was so scared.
Oh, you shouldn't.
So
you're lucky you didn't say that.
Yeah, I didn't. He's gonna. Hopefully, he sees this, and then I'm gonna get like an angry email or something. But I'm good. It's on my watch list. It is on my watch list, and I know most of the memes associated with it, so I've just got to sit down and watch it. But we're gonna move into our final segment, Stick Taps. These are our shout outs. And it doesn't have to necessarily be political. These are just things or stuff that we've seen in the country in our lives that we wanted to give a shout out to. So I'll give it to you first, Derek, our first shout out.
Yes. So I was wearing this jersey on Friday. We were at the James Joyce downtown Calgary for what's called the Sask Expats Politico Get Together. And we called it, I guess it was called a New Year's Bash, but it's all the people that are from Saskatchewan that moved to Alberta for one reason or another. And we all kind of have, a political background of some sort. So Jeff Sturzik, who now runs a very successful government relations firm, he organized it for many years, and he's like, I've done this for a lot of years. I've missed a couple of years, so I'm now going to bequeath this great responsibility to you, Derek, and I have accepted. So I helped organize this, and I just wanted to say thank you to Jeff. He deserves a stick tap for going out on a high too. He's just like Brad Wall, doing that. And some of the people that were there, I'm going to name them because they deserve a great shout out because they're great people. Wes Jinkling, Annie Dormith, Paul Hamnett. Great guy. Who else was there? Adam Nelson was there. Laura Arnold was there. Rob Will, Ryan Scott, Joni Ephraim, Natalie and Richard Truscott were there. Great people. So yeah, there's probably some more that I'm missing, but they all deserve a shout out. They're great Saskatchewan people that have, they haven't lost their green jerseys and bleeding green. But they're now Albertans and contributing to all sorts of things in Alberta and across the country. So good on them. They deserve a stick tap.
Yeah, friggin' rights. Great job.
Friggin' rights. Let's go. How come we didn't start with that, Greg?
Shoot, we messed up.
We totally messed up. We'll go top bins. We'll twinkle the twine next time a little bit better with our sports analogies.
Top shelf.
Top shelf.
My stick tap is from my beloved wife, Rachel. She puts up with a lot of nonsense. Yeah, she's a beautiful woman, takes care of the kids very, very well. Despite her, she's always hard. She's too hard on herself. I think she has the harder job than I do. Like, I just sit at a desk all day and make memes. She's got it. She's out there in the trenches, friggin' dealing with crazy kids. God love her and God love my kids. So yeah, stick taps for her. And a final stick tap for Brad Wall for coming on and doing the inaugural interview for our inaugural podcast. That was very kind of him, very generous of him to give his time.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching this first one. We're excited to get going here and have a lot of fun. And so yeah, if you want to be on the show, let us know. Or if you have some topics for us to cover, some sin bins, some chirps, some plays that you want to discuss, we'll certainly do that and have a lot of fun doing it.
Absolutely, friggin' rights. Let's go.
Let's go.
And there'll be way more sports talk and references in the next episode.
There was a decent amount though. I thought we did all right.
It was a good idea. Okay.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good for a first time. It's Steimer's here.
All right. Well, thank you,
Thanks,
Derek,
Greg.
for being on with us today. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. See you, everybody.
Cheers.